Welcome, listeners. I'm so thrilled to have you here today because I have someone who's become a dear friend, Dr. Duana Welch. She's been on before, so go back and listen. I'll have those episodes in the show notes. She's the love doctor, and she has really popular episodes. And I just always enjoy chatting with Duana. She is someone who's smart, has been through hard times, and has shared what she's learned to help you have a better life. And I love the topic that we're talking about today because many of my listeners are women between the ages of like 40 and 60, and I really want to speak to them. And what's so wonderful and parallel is Duana is now working on a book called Love Factually, Midlife, and Beyond. And so I think today we're going to talk a little bit about gray divorce, maybe a little bit about dating when you're 50 plus. Um, and I think it's advice that can help everyone, but in particular, those of us who are at that age. So, Duana, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so thankful that you're here. You always brighten my day, and it's just a treat. I get excited that you're going to be on and I get to see you. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It's really a joy to be back, and especially to talk about this wonderful topic to this delightful group of listeners because those of us who are 40 plus, we need love too.
Yep. Amen. And I think you're newly married and experiencing some love there on your own. And then you want to talk about that a little bit and what got you there?
Yeah, so I wound up quite unexpectedly divorced during the pandemic. And yeah. And so I spent a few months thinking about, okay, am I ready to start dating? Am I not ready to start dating? And I decided that I was. And I did all the things that I help clients to do. As you know, I see clients all over the world.
Mhm.
And I've written the Love Factually books. The one I recommend until the next one comes out,
Right.
the one for midlife and beyond, the one I recommend is Love Factually. 10 Proven Steps for My Wish to I Do, the revised and updated edition. This one. The other one,
Got it. We'll have it in the show notes too. They're
yeah,
all great. Yes.
thank you. So I decided I'm going to reread my own work. I'm going to make a plan just exactly like the plan that I make with all my clients. And I'm going to adhere to it stringently. And it's weird. I was on a podcast 2 weeks before I posted my profile. As you know, I write profiles for people, among the other things that I do. And 2 weeks before I decided that I was going to launch my profile online, looking for a partner, I was on a podcast and I said, I just had this realization that I want to share with everyone, which is the man that I'm looking for is actually out there right now looking for me, wondering where the heck I am. And it really made me feel so optimistic. So I hope that
Hmm.
that brings some joy to somebody else's heart as well. And so I put my ad out on New Year's Eve 2020. And on January 6th, 2021, my now husband responded. And so 7 days.
And if you go back to our past episode, we talked all about the juicy details of how to that together and how to really get someone who was an amazing fit for you. And I love how you were kind of in that podcast thinking about your future self. You were saying, and I think that's really strong, Dwayna, like there is someone out there looking for me right now too. It's optimistic, it's true. So now let's talk a little bit more about gray divorce. We're hearing about it. I'm helping a lot of people who are 50 plus going through a divorce. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, as you know, Lisa, it's the fastest growing segment of divorced people. And therefore, it's also the fastest growing segment of people who are dating because it was
Interesting.
a time when people would be shamed out of their sexuality and their needs for companionship. And largely in American society, anyway, largely that time is past. And people are realizing, you know what, I could live another 40 years. And even if, however long or short it is, I don't want to do it without the love of my life. I have clients who, well, I just did a wedding for a former client. She asked me to become ordained and to do her marriage ceremony, and she's 70.
Oh my
And
gosh, that is so cool. And you are the love doctor, Duana. You are.
well, thank you. As you know, and for people who haven't listened to the other podcasts, I use science to form the basis for how I help people. So I do that in my books, and I do it with my clients all over the world. And I was just in New York City talking to a dating conference there. And so, yeah, I was at the wedding of this one woman, and this is the only time in her life she's been in a healthy, happy relationship. This is it at
Mm,
70. It's never
crazy.
too late. I was 52, and it's been over a year now. I am so madly in love with my husband.
It's got to be,
He just
yes.
makes me glow.
It's such a great feeling. And do you think, like, part of the reason for the gray divorce is, like you said, people are starting to look and say, you know what, I could live 50 more years even.
Mhm.
And do I really want to like stay here, especially as you're looking at retirement, you're going to have more time with someone. Do you think they're evaluating the health of their marriage more than they used to at this age because of that? Because we're living longer? What are your thoughts, or what's the science behind it?
You know, I don't yet know the science behind why people are divorcing more, but here's what I do know. Economically, we are more able, especially as women, to determine in midlife and beyond that something isn't working for us and to leave if we need to and start again. But I do think there's a lot to what you're saying that, men and women alike are thinking the kids are raised and I'm not close to my partner. Maybe I haven't been close to my partner for a long time. Maybe it's even crossed a line. It's become abusive. It's made us both deeply unhappy, and I want out.
Right. And you don't maybe notice it when you have all the distractions of the children and all the things going on. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, who is this sitting across from me? That could be one, reason. I just don't really know for certain what it is that's causing the gray divorce. But I'm, like I said, I'm seeing it and it's a fact. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're going through a divorce and you're 50 plus, 40 plus, I think that there's it can be a really tricky time, and I think especially for women, and my heart goes out to them because I know the things that I struggle with as a woman this age of feeling worthy, of feeling like, having the confidence that I can do this on my own. There's a lot to it. So, and I've been married for 32 years, and so far we're empty nesters, grandparents, and we're still looking across kind of liking each other. So we're doing okay. But I think it's because of the work that I do and how much I put into it. I can't imagine, well, I mean, I guess I can, but how hard it would be to be my age, be going through a divorce, and I don't, I do have a lot of years left. I don't know that I want to go this alone. To think through, because things have changed a lot since I dated, I mean, there wasn't, now it's all online. So maybe we could address how to help women who are at this stage of their life and they're like, who, so that they can still dream big and know that they can, like you, find the love of their life, probably be even happier than they ever were. So what would they start doing? What can they do to get there?
Well, the first thing is to admit that they want to get there. And just to go back to your earlier question, um, here are things I know for sure from science. We're more individualistic now than we ever have been before, and women have more money than they've had before, and divorce creates its own momentum where it becomes more acceptable as it happens more often. So that's happening. So there are a lot of
Yeah,
cultural
more
factors.
acceptable. That's another good point. Yep.
Yeah, and individualism has risen more than ever before. Maybe I already said that. Sorry if I
You did. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, or do you know any of the reasons why? It's
Yes,
interesting to
so
me.
it
I didn't know
actually
that.
it individualism actually started to develop, and again, this is based on data. It began developing with what's called the silent generation, even before the boomers. And that's when, for example, women's libs started to gain a lot of traction. There were more women in the workforce. They had more options than they had had before. And they got the ball rolling, but boomers really ran with it. And Gen X, which is, of course, now aging to 50 and beyond, um, has gone even further with it. The signs are that the subsequent generations, it's just picking up more and more momentum. And in an individualist society, people tend to have a longer strategy of adulthood. So what that means is they get married usually later. They have
Hmm.
their kids later, and everything about their life happens a little bit later. And there's just not the taboo about divorce that there used to be. So I think those are a lot of the reasons why this phenomenon is happening. But I also think that I know from research that we never stop needing love. So the first thing I would say for someone to plan on is that they need to admit to themselves that it's okay to want and need love. This is
Hmm.
actually a really big struggle. Like I told you, I was just at a conference in New York, and the moderator of a panel that I was on was saying that, we women can do everything on our own now. We don't need a man. And that she herself had been criticized by men who said, well, but you don't need me. And she asked me to speak to that. And what I would say is, yeah, yeah, you do. You need love. Babies die without it, and actually so do adults. Every year that a man is single from any cause, whether he's single because his wife died or because he never got married or because he's divorced or any combination of these, as soon as he's single, his odds of death from all known causes increase by a factor of 6.
Wow. Okay, now I've got to stop you. You said a man.
Yes.
What about a woman?
It's not as high for women, largely because we have social support.
Okay.
Men really, this is changing a little bit, but they're
Hmm.
almost not allowed to have guy friends where they really talk about matters of the heart. That is
Hmm.
shifting, but it's still, there's still some stigma about that. And most men, the person that they tell everything to is not a therapist, because therapy also
Yeah.
is still stigmatized by most men. And it's not their best guy friend. It's the woman in their life. And if they don't have one, they're really not revealing their heart to anyone.
Hmm.
Loneliness is associated with higher rates of death for everyone.
Well, and it's interesting because I don't know a lot about this, but when you said individualism is on the rise, I'm always learning and growing, and I'm hearing about how oxytocin makes you happy, and that's being around people. That's being loved, that's being touched. And so then I couldn't help but wonder, are we less happy because of that individualism? And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
There's data on that as well. There's a lot of research on happiness, which I really like, because the other way of looking at things is everything's a problem. And
Right.
so there's actually a book from way back called "Happiness is a Serious Problem," and I just love that title because it is a serious problem. So yes, people are far, far happier if they have a relationship, and relationships are a little bit antithetical to individualism. So here's what we know for sure. In cultures that embrace individualism, if someone moves from a culture that values collectivist thinking, where the good of the group is placed above the good of the individual, if somebody moves from one of those cultures and moves to a culture like ours, they report higher happiness after they've been here, and they don't usually want to go back. So having a fully collectivist society is not necessarily, um, doesn't
Okay.
necessarily create happiness for individuals. But neither does complete individualism. I've noticed over the years, I've known a few people who can just travel whenever they want to, and money's not an object. And the problem with that is if you don't ever have to sign on for problems, then you probably aren't going to sign on for relationships, because relationships bring joy, but they also bring challenge. And what
Hmm.
we need is not necessarily collectivist or individualist. We need interdependence. We need to find someone where we help each other feel safe enough,
Yeah.
where we can mutually depend on each other and we can mutually put the other person's needs co-equal with ours. And in the absence of that, you're going to find a lot of unhappiness and even higher divorce rates.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. And you know what? I just need to add one other thing that I find interesting, because I've watched my husband through the years, and I've always been in community with other women. And I don't think that he was so much, he would have a friend at work. And here's one thing that's interesting about texting and, maybe even social media, although he doesn't go on that a lot. I find that he has better male friendships than he's ever had. And that's because he's staying connected to them. Now, I don't know how deep they're going, Duana. It might be something, about the game or about work or whatever it is. But I feel like he has more connections than he had 20 years ago.
Yeah, one of the things that we learned from research during and after the pandemic is how important it is to simply be connected, even at a superficial level.
Yeah.
But what really saves women's and men's lives is being connected in this deep, ongoing way.
Hmm.
There's a movie with a quotation in it that I just love this. Somebody's asking, I guess it's Susan Sarandon's character in the American version of Shall We Dance? And they're asking her, this guy wants to have an affair with her. And he says, why do people even get married? And she says, as a witness to our lives. And what we get when we have, and this is why to put real effort into this. Lots of people,
Hmm.
when I ask people if the right person just came up to you and they were just right for you, would you latch onto that relationship? Would you be willing to have it? People say, oh, yeah, but then they don't want to take any risks to get there, because the right person doesn't just show up for you. You have to make some effort. Sometimes, most of the time now, probably going to be online, but sometimes it can be through friends and family. I coach people how
Hmm.
to do that too. The 7-year-old I was just talking to you about, um, and she's given me permission to share this. How she met her wonderful husband, I just love him, is she we created her materials, her photographs, her profile of what she was looking for. I have people write a profile, or I write it for them, about who they're after, not what they're like,
Yeah.
both to repel the wrong people and strongly attract the right people. And also it stands out in the crowd. I asked her to share that profile with everyone she knew who loved her. Her
Oh,
kids,
yeah.
her best friends, anyone that she trusted to take her seriously and have her best interest at heart. So she wound up sharing this profile with many people, one of whom was her grown son. And her grown son shared it with his then girlfriend, now his wife. And his then girlfriend shared it with her hairdresser. And her hairdresser shared it with her father, who is now married to my former client.
So,
So,
Duana, yeah, that's the greatest story. And I'm trying to think of this for the women that I'm trying to help in this episode. And you said that the first thing is for them to admit that they want love, that they do want to find love. And then you said to have the courage to take steps. Am I saying this right? Is that one and two? And then like to do what you're talking about. Now you did a profile that maybe would have gone on a dating app, but did you have her share it with family and friends first, or was it on a dating app?
so it's a both and world. Everything I do and everything I recommend is both and.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
If you were looking for a job, I hope you would tell your friends and your
Yes.
family and people that you met at any kind of function. And I hope you would also go online and look for jobs, and. So
Yes.
this is the same thing. It's about, and you're right, finding love takes courage. I didn't use that word, but I often say finding love takes bravery, and it also takes strategy, and that's kind of what we're talking about now. Admit
Yeah.
that you want love, and please divest yourself of the shame around that. Everybody needs it.
Right.
And then have a strategy. And that's really, I come in at all points here, but I create a start to finish strategy. And part of that strategy is, okay, what exactly do you want? And Lisa, we've covered that in a past podcast episode,
Yes.
and whether people are being reasonable and all that. And then once you know what you want, then where do you put it? Friends and family, I've just given you an example of
Yeah.
a case that worked very well. I have a lot of people say, well, that didn't work for me. Well, only one thing ultimately does work for you, right? I did all
Right.
the things that I teach my clients, and one of them worked, but that's all we need. We just need one of them to work. And so, I mean, you wouldn't say about talking to friends about a job, oh, that didn't work, nobody should do it. You would say, well, it didn't work for me, but you know, other things work
Right.
for me, and it's a legit way to go about searching. So part of what you need to do is approach friends and family, and they're all going to say the following: oh, I don't know anybody. They don't need to. They don't need to. My client did not marry someone that her son directly knew, or even someone that her son's
Yeah.
then girlfriend directly knew. She married someone who her son's girlfriend's hairdresser was related to.
That is so crazy and amazing.
But there are other ways to look too. What you say to these folks is, well, I don't need you to know them. I just need you to pass it on to people that you trust, who might be willing to tell you if they know someone like this, which
Yeah.
is another reason to write it about them, not you. Because they'll be thinking,
Right.
oh, that's what I know that guy. I know
So,
that guy.
and Duana, just for the people who haven't listened to that, can you just explain briefly, write it about them, not you? Because you so you did yours so beautifully and you help people come up with such a great profile. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Sure. The very, very nutshell version of this, since we have talked a little bit about it
Yeah.
before, is that you want to place an ad about the person that you're looking for. So mine, I place, and you can do it lots of ways, but I advise humor, because who doesn't love humor? And so, funny attracts funny, and all women want somebody funny. That's also been researched, by the way. Everyone wants somebody funny. So, in my own ad, for example, I wrote my ad from the perspective of me being a casting agent looking for the male lead in an upcoming rom-com. And I said, the successful applicant will have the following features or something like that. And I just listed what I was looking for. And then at the bottom, I said, this casting call is open for, and then I named a date 30 days after that, because I was posting this online, and they really don't push you much online after the first 2 or 3 weeks. So another free tip, just get a 1 month membership and then move on to something else for a month. And then, if
Yeah.
none of those works, circle back. I've had people say, but I already did that one for a month. Look, people have moved on. They're new guys. Go ahead and
Right.
place up there again for another month after that.
Right.
It's not like there are police on there who is going to say, Judy, you already said that. No, you can't be here anymore. Bye. That's not what's going to happen. So that's one thing. Put it online. Tell your friends. It matters where you go online, though. Here's what I want you to do: only accept communication with people who paid to be there. Think about who doesn't pay to be there. People who are highly ambivalent.
Yep.
Also, it's good if you buy a membership someplace where you can write a lot and not just a little. And here are 2 reasons why. Reason number 1 is that people pay strong attention to the information that they have. And if all the information they have is how good looking you are, that's all the information they have. It's the only criterion on which you will be judged. And
Right.
second, it's the only criterion on which you will then judge people. And we've all known people who wound up married to someone who maybe isn't amazing looking. They're okay.
Right.
But they found the love of their life, and how they did it really was they got to know them. So I'd like you to be on a site where you can say a lot about who you're looking for, and they can say a lot, because that's more data points, and it lets you stop focusing exclusively, or I hope even mainly, on someone's appearance. It lets you screen for character. People, obviously, if there's no attraction whatsoever, if you feel like there's not a universe in which this man could put a hand on my naked body and I wouldn't feel love, then obviously don't date them. But
Right.
if you see that someone's a great person and they meet the bare minimum standard of maybe this could grow, I want you to reach out to them. Yeah. And another reason that I want you to be someplace with a lot of information is when people are only looking at appearance, a very, to me, bizarre thing happens. But again, science, it doesn't always do the things that I think it will do. It doesn't
Right.
always find the things I think it will find. What it's found is people tend to choose partners on swiping apps that are about 10% better looking than they are. In the real world, this doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Right.
Wind up with their match, not their, oh my gosh, they're so much better looking than me, unless you're trading looks and youth and beauty for resources. But otherwise, you're really looking at people match physically and in a lot of other ways. So if looks are all you have and you're swiping right on people 10% better looking, then what happens is the people at the very, very top of this triangle, they have their choice. They can have anyone,
Yeah.
right? And then the people who are, and they're going to pick each other, right? They're going to pick the other best looking people. And then the people further down the triangle, they're the ones who are complaining it never works out online. Well, that's one reason why.
Well, okay, I have to ask you, I know where time is of the essence here, but I have to ask you, profile picture quickly. Do you want like the best picture of you out there, or what do you do? How do you pick a profile picture?
The profile picture should be a picture of you doing a squinty eyed, full on smile directly into the camera.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, show
I
your
love
teeth.
it.
Show your teeth. Do not be wearing sunshades.
Yep.
Let them see you. Here's why. First of all, men routinely, and again, because science, men routinely read women as interested in them who make full eye contact while smiling at them with a real eye crinkling smile. Don't
Oh.
don't Botox this. Don't do it. Let it show,
Ah.
because that's what tells. And honestly, Botox has been shown to reduce emotion. Did you know that?
No, and I was hearing, it's interesting. Remember how I told you about the oxytocin?
Hmm.
That if you can't smile and show your emotion, you're not as happy.
Yes. So actually, Botox interferes with that.
Yes,
Yeah,
isn't
I'll
that
never get it.
interesting?
I'll never get it. I'm about to turn 55, and I'm going to live with and love all the different wrinkles that I have, because I want to feel joy, and joy
Yeah,
is tied to being able to move all those facial muscles, but it's
yeah,
also tied to being able to find someone. The people who care about you being completely wrinkle free and you can't have a gray hair on your head, and those people do not have what scientists and developmental psychologists refer to as a secure attachment style. They probably have an avoidant attachment style, and that means they're going to be super, super critical of your appearance.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm just not willing to live with that. I'm not.
Such great advice. Okay, so we have to wrap this up soon. And as you know, I have what I call the saddle up segment, where I ask for one little tidbit or piece that you've given us so much advice. But what is one thing you can leave my listeners with today, maybe that they could do right away to help them?
Right away, to help you memorize the following. If you can find and be someone kind and respectful, your love life is going to go great. And if you can't, it will not.
So good. Words of wisdom from Dr. Duana Welch. Duana, that went flying by. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to have your information in the show notes. How can people find you if they're just listening and want to look you up right now?
Sure, they can go to lovesciencemedia.com, and there they will see lots of podcast links and article links and free stuff. And they will also see a tab that lead you to my books, and they will also see, I think there are 9, but the big books, the thick ones are the ones
Yeah.
on that. And then they will also be able to reach out to me. There's an email and a consult page.
Wonderful. And congratulations on that new book, too. That's amazing. You're quite the lady. I love having you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on and for helping all these amazing women.
You bet. Take care.
Take care.